One of the biggest struggles that we have in spirituality is understanding what it means to actually receive a tradition, to receive anything, insight, wisdom, study, practice. We're always kind of in the state of being perpetual students. In some ways, that's a good thing. We should always be learning. If you ever feel like you know everything and you've got it all down, that's probably a sign that there's a problem somewhere. But the biggest problem that I see is people who keep themselves in this perpetual student place. I'm not worthy. No, I just need to do what the teacher tells me. I don't know how to answer this. I need to ask an authority what to do. And that develops a dependence on spiritual leaders that is frankly unhealthy. Or it just creates a warped self-image that says we're never good enough to start speaking up. I had that problem too. I've started practicing creation spirituality in 2000. And yet in the 2020s, I still didn't feel like I was worthy to talk about it all that much. It's not that I didn't, I just felt very shaky and unclear about whether or not I should or could. So when Creation Spirituality communities started offering their certification program, I jumped at it. I was like, here we go. Finally, I can get a piece of paper. I can get certified as a teacher leader in Creation Spirituality, and then I'll know. And then in the first class, The Essentials of Creation Spirituality, for my final project, I wrote something I called the Epistle to the Wayfarers. It was a little letter written in the style of like a New Testament epistle to people who are practicing creation spirituality to explain the essentials simply and clearly. The point of the project was to show our understanding and make sure that we truly understood the material. We weren't supposed to regurgitate what we had been taught or just recite the essentials as they were written down, but to put them in our own words. And I turned it in, and Sid's response was that he wanted to show it to Matthew Fox. And that took me aback. Why would you want to show anything I wrote to the guy who came up with all this stuff? Like, wouldn't he already know it? And then in the next class, Deidre, who was teaching that class, The Reinvention of Work, said, well, you already have all this down. You're just here for the paper. And that's when I realized she was right. I was just there for the paper. I had spent 20 plus years studying and practicing creation spirituality. I had built it down into the bones of who I was. It was the foundation of everything that I thought, believed, and did. But I didn't think I was worthy to talk about it because I didn't have a piece of paper. Looking back at it now, it feels kind of silly that I ever thought that way. But I think a lot of us kind of have that issue. So today, we're going to talk about what it really means to receive a spiritual tradition, a practice, wisdom, however you want to word it, as we walk together down creation's paths. Hello, everyone. My name is Charlie. I am a Christopagan Druid and Priest of Bridget.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian. I'm a Christopagan Druid and sous chef to the Dagda.
And today we are going to be continuing our walk down the Tree of Life and talk about code. Code means splendor. And when people see that word, I think they have a very different idea about what this emanation, this power is. It's very different from what it actually is. This is the place of receptivity, the place where we receive. Last week, we were talking about how we kind of feel that internal drive that moves us forward. This is its receptive counterpart. This is where that drive is received and taken in. But before we get into all that, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever the terminology happens to be on whatever the app is you're listening to us on. We do a lot of work to make sure that we have the best episodes on creation spirituality that we can bring to you. And we've got a lot of fun stuff planned, and you don't want to miss anything. Also, while you're at it, if you go over and subscribe over at our Substack at creationspaths.com, you'll be getting soon some very special things, including to all of our supporting members over there, be getting a copy of my book, a digital copy of my book, Creation's Paths, which is my primer to creation spirituality with introduction by Matthew Fox that explains all of the things that we're talking about and then some. I really enjoyed putting this book together. This meant a lot to me, and I hope that it will really help you understand what creation spirituality is and how to practice it. Every chapter comes with a practice so that it's not only something that you receive up here, but something you can receive and experience in your body, because creation spirituality is an embodied spirituality. So if you want to, check out the book, or like I said, our supporting members over at the Substack will be receiving their free digital copy soon. All right, let's just get into it now, shall we? So I think a lot of us have experienced this, and it's a problem that goes right down into how spirituality has been taught, whether that's from the Methodist writers who went out and preached and taught and really kind of instituted this group of pastors who had the right to speak in our country, the Baptist Reformations, the revivals that spread throughout the country, or whether it be from the 1960s when we started importing gurus from India that we should sit at the feet of and learn. There really is this idea that is very pressed into spirituality, that what you do is you find a great enlightened teacher and you sit at their feet and you just absorb. You absorb and you absorb. And it's important to remember that we should be like Mary Magdalene, who, yes, sat at the feet of Jesus, but also was the apostle to the apostles who went out and preached, the first to preach the gospel. We're supposed to be able to speak. We're supposed to be developing ourselves as individuals. And when we just sit and learn, we're not developing that in ourselves. A lot of times, these systems create habits in us that allow grifters and charlatans to come in and really take advantage of faith communities because, well, you're supposed to sit and obey, touch not the anointed of the Lord and all that. And that's really not the kind of reception that we're supposed to be doing. All are equal in the eyes of God. It says it over and over and over in Scripture. God is no respecter of persons. Every time you see somebody point to somebody else or to themselves and say that they are the chosen of God, just say, congratulations. So is everybody else.
And I think you really named it there, because that really is, that passivity is really the negative aspect of Hod, the bad aspect of Hod. One of the bad aspects of Hod is passivity. And I know that was something that I really struggled with overcoming, is this where you're just waiting. And it's okay to be patient. It's okay to wait. But when you're waiting, you got to go. Because this is the place of receiving. So you should be patient and wait and be ready to receive the energy as it flows in. But you've got to be ready to go when you get that. And yeah, we see this. So much has been taught with spirituality. Like, you're supposed to, like you said, sit at the feet of the guru and wait and be passive. Even in our entertainment, as Charlie talked before, in beauty and stuff, and the art of savoring, so often we're so passive with our entertainment. We're just letting it just wash through us. And there's nothing,
not even through, just over,
and there's no connection, there's no connectivity. It's just going right through, and there's no receptivity to that. We're not allowing it to challenge our thoughts or to evoke emotions. Even, like, most of the time you just sit there, and not even have an emotional reaction to what you're engaging with, because you're supposed to engage with your entertainment, not be passive with your entertainment.
And this is why the two words that you will hear me use most often are practice and work, because neither one of those is passive, and it reminds us that we're supposed to be doing something with this. We're not just sitting to hear pretty words and have our ears tickled and to be told that we're the greatest. We're here to actually do something. This is a practice. It's something that you do. The soul is an instrument that must be played. And if we're not doing that, we're not really connecting to the deepest parts of ourselves. And I think a lot of us, even after deconstruction, still carry that with us. I know for myself, I had left a very controlling evangelical church and then immediately jumped into the Catholic Church, which, I mean, we all have our thoughts about the Catholic Church for good and ill, but neither of these places are really firmly telling people to go out and create their own opinions and have their own opinions. So even after I had left all that and had started developing and growing my own beliefs and ideas, the idea that I had any right to share them, well, I don't have credentials, I don't have certifications, I'm not ordained by somebody to do this. And that wore on me, because while I had deconstructed the belief system that I had been in, I had deconstructed a lot of the false beliefs there, those habits stayed with us. And this is really important when we get to something like code. NetSec and code and YESID, which we'll be talking about next week, this is really the triad of habit. It's our drive, receptivity, and our actions, our foundational actions, like the ground truth of who we are, which is what our spirituality is actually trying to mend and shape and get moving in the right place. We can do all that we want to do to change the thoughts up here, but if the actions don't change here, we haven't actually deconstructed those things. And so while my beliefs were very different from the evangelicalism I was raised in, that belief of, well, I don't have that piece of paper that says I am a pastor, so how can I see? That was still in there. That was still a part of who I was. And that didn't get deconstructed until literally other people just started pointing it out to me. One of the things I didn't say in the story at the beginning is while I was still taking that certification class, Sid asked if I minded if he put my name forward for the board of Creation Spirituality Communities. That really was a glass-shattering moment for me, because here I was taking these classes so I can get my piece of paper that says, yes, I'm able to talk about these things, and I haven't finished it yet. I'm about halfway through the courses, and it wasn't just him. It was a couple of the teachers that I had and some other people that I had interacted with along the way. They were like, yeah, you should really be doing this. You should be on the board.
Yeah, I've been saying it too. I remember putting myself like, me, I said it. I was saying it too.
That really broke everything open for me, because apparently I didn't need that piece of paper. Like, I'm glad I have it. I'm not upset that I took the classes, and I did finish the course and I got my certification and all of that, but I didn't need it because I needed it. That just is a tangible connection to the lineage. It's how I got to actually meet Matthew Fox and have discussions with him and develop what little of a relationship we have, to ask him to be able to actually write the intro to this book and to get his feedback on it. And it opened so many doors that if I had not been receptive, I would never have allowed to open. And that really is one of the things we're going to be seeing a lot as we talk through this path. If we're not allowing ourselves to be receptive to what's being offered to us, very often we're running around going, but where's the blessing that I've been asking for? Well, it's there. The package keeps getting delivered and you're just letting it sit on the doorstep because you're not receiving it in. You're not welcoming it inside. You're not allowing it to flow in. And that's kind of where I had been. And I think that's where a lot of us are, wondering where that blessing is, where that wisdom is, where that gift is, when it's literally on the doorstep. Just go get it.
Receptivity really is the key thing to keep in mind here, because I've also seen examples of this on the other side, when somebody steps up and goes, okay, I'm now the teacher, I'm the authority person, and instead of changing, they change the beliefs, but they didn't change the habit, so they become the tyrant and they stop receiving. They close their hand and they no longer listen to those around them. They no longer take in consideration of criticism and this, that, and the other, and become that very oppressive authority figure of, you need to sit down and listen type. You're now at the feet of the master, so be blessed and listen to what everything I have to say, no matter whatever it is, and just accept it. And it's like, no, it works both ways. It's still that receptivity needs to be open and ready.
And I think this is something that we should probably have like some kind of a bigger conversation about at some point, because I struggle with that word master. Because I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a Star Wars fan, but I don't like the idea of the Council of Jedi Masters, because then it's kind of this master servant kind of relationship that's there. But there are people that have mastered certain disciplines, and maybe that word still matters. But the most important part is that we deconstruct this really dangerous idea that there are those who should be obeyed and those who obey, those who are greater than everyone and those who are lesser. That is not a real state of anything. No matter how much anybody wants to make that a thing, it's not a thing. So we need to be asking ourselves when we receive whatever it is. And this goes further than just spirituality. When you receive a compliment, how do you deal with that? I don't do well. I'm still working on that. When you receive criticism, how does that work? When you receive anything, when that comes in, how does that get processed? What does that do? That's really the heart of what we're trying to get at here. Because if we're putting other people above us, and one of those people that we believe wrongly to be above us, superior to us, or anything like that, tries to tell us a criticism, a compliment, or what have you, that can have harmful effects on us because we will blow it all out of proportion. And we need to be very, very careful about that. I still have problems with this. I have problems with this all the time, especially when somebody I have a lot of respect for gives me a piece of criticism. It hits really, really hard and makes me start questioning a lot of things. But it's something that we need to be asking ourselves. What does it mean for us to receive? How do we do that well? So let's walk this idea through the path. What does this look like in practice? In the Via Positiva, the first path, the positive way, where do we find awe? Well, let me give you an analogy. Picture this if you can. True receptivity, you should be like a diamond. The light comes in, is received through all of the many facets that you have etched in you by your life, your philosophy, your practice. And on the inside, as it's going through that crystal structure within you, it sparkles and shines and has a fire inside that radiates back out. See, that is true receptivity, that diamond-like receptivity, where you have this diamond heart where the light shines in and gets refracted and glows and burns and shimmers and reflects back out and adds sparkle and delight and shine and shimmer to everything around you. I think that is an amazing image. And it really does capture what Hod, when practiced properly, really is. All of that energy that's coming to us shines inside, reflects, refracts, and glimmers back out. The fire, the light, all of that. It's not held inside and trapped. It's not collected. It's not kept from getting in. It just sparkles and shines and gives life. That's the Via Positiva.
It really is a beautiful image. I'm actually going to share some words of Matthew Fox for a moment here from, forward in this. So he talks about how I've been a teacher for 55 years and a published writer for about 65 years. And always one is moved to see the miracle of 1 + 1 = 3 occur. That is to say, one's teachings encountering a student's mind and that resulting in a third thing, thus 1 + 1 = 3. That is the creative process after all. That really is the wonder of Hod. You receive the teaching, the instruction from your lineage of your teachers and instructors. And it's not this passive receptivity. It is an active one where you're receiving it and you're adding to it your context and your present moment experience, your personal experience of your present time, and it equals something more than what either parts were individually. And that's where you get that 1 + 1 = 3. And I think it really speaks true. I mean, that's something that, Charlie was experiencing with creation spirituality, and where that gets capsulated in the Creation Paths book, where it's all those years of instruction and study, plus all the other contexts, the other experiences, being able to pull in the Buddhist study and Islamic study and Judaic study and the occult, Kabbalistic practice and study, and pulling all that in and it actually equaling a third new thing hybridized together.
And so as we turn over to the Via Negativa, we're going to look at the negative way in a slightly different aspect than we often talk about. Yes, this is where the darkness is. Yes, this is where we experience grief and pain. But it's also the place where we make space. This is a place of openness, of spaciousness. And that's really the practice of Chod here. Chod teaches us to open up, to make space. If there's not room for something to be received, it can't come in. And so we have to start there. Whether we're trying to deconstruct and make something better, or whether we're trying to build something and start on a new path, we have to make room for it within us to start growing. If you just throw seeds out into the grass, well, the grass is probably going to overshade them and they're not going to grow. You have to actually tend the garden and make space for those seeds to be planted. And if we're not careful here, and we don't make that space, or we don't clean up the rocks and the weeds just right before we do that planting, this will either turn into a form of submission and obedience, which we've talked about before, continue talking about until we can get rid of this idea of obedience as a holy virtue, because it is not, or it turns itself inward into a kind of shame of, I keep replicating these things from my past and I don't mean to do it. Habits are hard to break. And if we allow ourselves to get into those shame spirals, they will tear us down. We also have to be careful to not think that we've deconstructed everything from ourselves. While Martin Luther broke away from the Catholic Church, the institution that he created had the same, shall we say, inquisitorial spirit as the one that he left. The things that he was actually arguing about kind of returned in the movement that he founded, because he did not do all of the deconstruction that he needed to before he started the work. And in fact, he became even worse as he got older. Towards the end of his life, wrote some of the most anti-Semitic books ever written.
It's why in this space I like to have both tools in mind. One where if I'm tempted to run to the extreme of too much, then I want to hold open the space for receptivity. So if I feel I've learned enough to be knowledgeable on a subject, I want to always hold open the space that I can always learn more. I can always know more. I can make mistakes because we're all human. If Jesus said, "Don't call me good rabbi or good master," because hey, then we should all accept the fact that we're human. We're going to make mistakes. It's okay. It's okay for Jesus. It's okay for us. Yeah.
No one is good except your Father who is in heaven.
Yeah. Yep. No matter how good you are, you might be good most of the time, but you're still going to have it happen.
And I think that's both important to understand, just to dwell on that for a minute, and not lose sight of. When Jesus says no one is good except for your Father who is in heaven, that's really trying to get us to understand everyone alive is a mixed bag. Everyone. If you are living in this world, you have good days and you have bad days. You have days when you just got up on the wrong side of the bed and you're grumpy and you're tired, and you may say some things that you don't actually mean because you're not thinking about what you're doing. I always find it important to point out that even those that we think are the most enlightened have days that make us question what enlightenment actually is. Enlightenment is freedom from suffering. Well, maybe the Buddha didn't suffer, but when he found out a friend of his died, he cried. Yeah. He's still human.
Yep.
And that's an important thing to remember. We want to put people, places, and things on pedestals so that they're up there and they're untouchable. Most of the saints that I have devotion to have things in there that I'm more than willing to criticize. I love Hildegard of Bingen, but she saw no problem in the Crusades. That was wrong. She should have done better.
I ran into that last week, where I had to go through an exercise of humility, and I had to use my voice. And this is where humility really comes into play, where you need to occupy the space you're supposed to occupy. I ran into an instance last week where I was reading an article from a group that I respect and enjoy reading the articles and stuff on, who is very big on deconstructing and challenging their beliefs and stuff. And they used pagan as a slur word, basically, as a way of castigating a group that did need to be castigated. The group was doing the wrong things, but pagan was being used as a shortcut. And so part of that receptivity is it was that moment where I needed to receive that and then speak out and address that respectfully. I didn't castigate them, but I needed to be that voice that reminded them that they needed to do some more work on their deconstruction. They weren't there yet because they were still assuming all pagans were whatever the Romans tried to claim they were. And it was
actually pagan's a church word.
Yeah, it's not that.
Paganus just meant farmer, somebody who lives rurally. It was the Christians who turned that into a pejorative, because while they were able to shut down the shrines and temples in the cities, they had a much harder time getting them shut down in the rural areas.
Yeah.
And yet that can be hard. And the idea that standing up in those moments is a form of receptivity, it is. Remember what we said in the Via Positiva, we should sparkle like a diamond, that light shines in, but it sparkles and it shines in us. If that love, if that discernment, if that strength is shining into you, then sometimes when it sparkles back out, it does sparkle back out in I don't think this is what we should do as a loving community. I don't think this is what we should do in this context. This doesn't seem to work right. That's still receptivity. Receptivity can and should, and I would almost go so far as to say must, ask questions. If you're not asking questions, and especially if you're in a situation that tells you can't ask questions, get out, run as fast as you can. That is a bad place to be.
And that is because a lot of the questions is more of that energy of Netzach, but that energy flows into where we are here in Hod. So that question energy should be the fuel behind that receptivity that you should be receiving and exploring.
So as we move into the Via Creativa, the creative way, we ask ourselves, what are we making here in the place of splendor in Hod? Well, the analogy I like to use is nobody gets Lego so that they can say, look at all the bricks I have. They get Lego to build something. And that's what we are doing here. We're receiving all the bricks, all the pieces that we can then use to build something. And that building really does happen here in Hod. We start putting the pieces together. We start sorting them. We make the plan. We have the foundation by the time we get to Yesod. And we'll be talking about that more next week. This is a place of building. What can you actually do with this information? How does it actually affect you? When I hear that the universe was built 13.8 billion years ago, this is when the great flaring forth happened and everything came into being, I'm awestruck by that. 13.8 billion years ago, everything that is came into being. Every atom of hydrogen was born. Wow. I mean, that's just arresting. And it gives me respect for the universe and the world around me. It helps to connect me to the cosmos because I realize every bit of water in my body came from that first flaring forth. You see how the bricks are clicking together? Click, click, click. It's not just information. This is the problem with a lot of the way that we do education and schooling now. We receive so that we can give back. If somebody gave you a Lego set and expected you to hand them back all of the pieces one by one without actually building the thing itself, that would feel weird, wouldn't it? Yet that's how we often do education. We're going to give somebody the bricks. Here are the bricks. Now you have all of the bricks. Now, one by one, I'm going to ask you a question and you figure out which brick to hand back to me. Not so I can build the thing, but just so I can make sure that you actually receive the bricks. That's a strange world to live in.
It's a very strange world to live in. And this is where like make better comes in. We weren't handed the wheel and just went, oh, thank you for the wheel. Here's a wheel. We went, oh, if we do this, it becomes a wagon wheel. Oh, if we do this, it becomes a train wheel. Oh, if we do this, it's an automobile wheel. Oh, look how smoother our ride is. Like it made so many improvements. We keep going, what if hoverboard? Like, I don't know, did it for trains. We went, no wheel. The wheel became magnetic.
The power of tradition and lineage is to keep us from having to reinvent that wheel every generation. But that also puts a responsibility on every generation to improve that wheel. You don't have to figure out the geometry of a circle every time. We know the geometry of the circle. We know how to make a circle. We know the way spokes work and how different materials can either smooth or roughen a ride or work on this and that terrain, because our ancestors have done all of that testing for us. And so that's knowledge and wisdom that we can receive and then continue to improve so that we hand down even better traditions to those that come after us. That's actually the point here. I think way too many of us treat tradition as this museum piece. This was handed down to us by thy great-great-grandfather, and your great-grandfather, and your grandfather, and my father, and now to me, and now exactly the same shall it be here. That's not how tradition lives. That is a museum. That's not how tradition lives, and not a place that you actually live in.
And this is where I get to make the historians out there very happy by going, this is where if we don't learn from our history, we're doomed to repeat it, comes into play. If we look at our history with passivity, we end up repeating it. We should be taking that lineage of what has been tested and tried before and learning from it. The United States tried doing tariffs and stuff. We tried throwing out all of those strangers among us, the immigrants, and it ended badly both times. Each time it ended badly. If we would just learn from that lineage and move forward, we can then go, well, this is a bad idea. We know because we tried it. Let's throw that out and try something different.
We have this problem where we think that because something is old, it's somehow better. And that's not often the case. Yeah, there's some knowledge that was lost for a long time, like how to make Roman concrete, for example. That's concrete that has stood for millennia, whereas our concrete cracks and breaks in 10, 15 years. Yeah, that was a technology that we lost because that recipe wasn't handed down and we had to figure out how to do it again. And that's a broken tradition. But just because something is old doesn't make it the best one. Yes, it's nifty and interesting and powerful to understand what the people who composed the scripture said. The scripture, the Constitution, whatever document you're looking at. Yes, but for the scripture's point of view, we have 2,000 years of uninterrupted commentary on this text. Sometimes more than that, depending on which text we're talking about. And that shows us how people's ideas morphed and changed and grew and developed over time. And that lineage, that cycle of transformation also matters. Yes, we don't read some of these passages the way that they read them back when they were originally written. I do think it is valuable for us to know what it originally meant when it was originally spoken and allowing the text to speak. But we're not beholden to something that was said 250 years ago or 2,000 years ago. Those are just ideas that somebody wrote down. There's a whole living tradition that have built and developed and grown off of those ideas that should be consulted and understood as well. And that really brings a lot of power to everything. We often want to oversimplify every problem or overcomplicate it. The real trick is to be in the middle. If you don't understand how the bricks click together, or how other people have clicked the bricks together, it's harder to learn how to build whatever it is you want to build. A good example of this is the controversy going on about a book that came out not that long ago called The Unseen Realm, that argues quite rightly that the ancient Israelites believed in a divine council of gods. This is based off of a lot of evidence, but also off of one passage that is preserved differently in the Dead Sea Scrolls. In the Septuagint, it says, and in later texts, it says the sons of Israel. In this text, it said the sons of God. That's a very different reading. Now, the argument then is, well, that didn't matter because that was lost. Well, if that was lost, why does Aquinas bring it up when he was writing many years later? We see a lineage past it. There is a ghost lineage of that passage that has been lost to us because the oldest complete manuscript that we have of the Hebrew scriptures only goes back to the 800s. I don't know if you know that or not, but we've lost so much. And so we can see that there was this whole ghost lineage saying things that just because the one version that we have today says one thing, that may not have been how the Lego clicked together in the past. And so we can learn, well, this tradition changed those words and took the Lego bricks this way. This tradition kept the original language for a while and built the Lego that way. That's fascinating. That is information that helps us learn. But more importantly than what all of these people in the past thought of is what that means to us today. Oh, that's great. You took those bricks to build a Millennium Falcon. Maybe I don't want to build a Millennium Falcon. Maybe I want to build something else. But you can still learn about how they did some of the shapes and whatnot from that. And that's the tricky bit here in the Via Creativa. Yes, learn how people have snapped those bricks together in the past, but you're not beholden to the way they snapped them together, because our needs are different than theirs. Our world is different from theirs. We definitely will need those bricks snapped together in a different way. And that's always the question. How can we snap them together in a way that works for us now? As we move into the Via Transformativa, we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we're sending out into the world? What is the transformation that's supposed to be happening in us and in society? And how do we bring that out with joy? Well, let's go back to that diamond image that we started with. We are now that radiant diamond shining out into the world. And that is how we bring change. We have collected all of the pieces, and now it's time to start building that foundation, to start building up those roots that will ground us in the firm soil. Jesus said, if your house is built upon the rock, when the rains come and the winds blow, it shall not be toppled. And that's what we're trying to do here. Build ourselves on a firm foundation. That takes a lot of time for us to weed through and find all of the bricks that we need to put into place, all of the stones that are necessary to make that foundation solid and true. But once we get them, they not only work for us, but for others. We're building a path that we can help guide others to. They're not going to walk the same path that we do, but they can see the direction that we're going and can follow us alongside. And that's a powerful, powerful thing to do. And one of the true gifts of properly practiced receptivity. Before we leave, we'd like to offer you a little practice that you can do to kind of put this experience into your body. And you can do this wherever you are. And I'm going to offer you kind of 3 ways to do it so that wherever you are, you can do whatever feels more appropriate, or depending on how much energy you have, what you want to actually do. We're going to start by putting our hands palm up. Now, you can do this either just resting them on your lap if you don't have the energy, or if you're in a place where you don't want to make a scene, just put your hands palm up on your lap. Or you can raise them up, shoulder height, palms up. Or if you have the energy, put your arms all the way up. Do the Y in the YMCA, all the way up. Whatever is appropriate for the space that you're in. And take a moment, close your eyes if you need to, but just invite that light inside us. Invite that light to shine in. Fill yourself like a chalice, being filled by that radiant light. And once you feel full, once you feel that light coming into you, let it funnel into your crystal heart, into that diamond heart within, and begin radiating out into the world. See the light coming in and shining out as it's reflected and refracted out into the world. And just hold that for as long as you need to just really feel this process of taking in and shining. Remember at the beginning when I said Ode Splendor? This is that splendor lived physically in your body. Just take it in. Make the sign with your hands. We are receiving, and then we are sending. We are receiving, and we are sending. And do that until you feel it deep down inside. You can do that anywhere for a little bit of time, for a long time. You can do it secretly with your hands on your lap, with your palms up, and then your palms out. No one will even know what you're doing if you're in a place where you don't want to make a spectacle. Part of the way up, all the way up, whatever works best for you. But do it with your body. Make the motions. Receive, send. Receive, send. And really feel that light radiating within you. Visualize it if you can, but feel it. That is what it means to live rightly in hope. And as we're going out, let me leave you with a blessing. It's one that you can pick up, say to yourself or say to others. Blessed are those with the diamond heart who take in the light and radiate it out to all the worlds. Amen.
Amen.